Marcus Hyjema in the U.S. Army.
Patrick Wolf in the Army.
James Marshall, National Guard, Captain.
James Hoovener, Army, Sergeant Major.
My brother is RJ Plummer, and he serves in the Marine Corps.
His name is Yuji. He's serving in the Navy.
This is my father, Patrick Gervais. He served in the Navy in the late 1970s.
Sergeant Dave Morales. I was in the Marine Corps and also currently serving in the United States Air Force.
My dad is Lane Warren. He was in the Navy.
My name is Larry Burkhart, and I served in the U.S. Air Force, and I retired as a Master Sergeant out of the Air Force.
My grandfather was in World War II. He was in the Navy. His name is George Siegel.
Rick Swaim, U.S. Air Force Sergeant when I left the military.
My husband is Rex Yarian. He's a Vietnam veteran. He was in the Army, the 25th Infantry Division.
Craig J. Hintz, United States Air Force Sergeant, and Iowa Army National Guard and the United States Army Reserve Lieutenant Colonel.
I have been impacted by the military in many ways, but the first I want to acknowledge is my father, Dale Thompson. He served in the U.S. Army/Air Force at the end of World War II, and he was stationed in England, and he loaded ammunition in the bottom of airplanes.
He's currently a commander at a naval base in the U.S. and he's waiting to be deployed.
I remember I was in kindergarten at the time when he was serving, and I remember going in the classroom under the little plastic slide and just crying, hoping that my dad was okay. While the other kids were doing crafts and singing songs, I'd be wondering if my dad was going to come home.
My draft number was 27, so I chose at that point to look at the Air Force and see what they had to offer. So I went to Lafayette. I was living in Frankfurt at the time. Went to Lafayette, took the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, the ASVAB test, got into the Air Force, and served from January of 1971 to November of 1974. Was down in Lackland Air Force Base for basic training, then went to Shepherd Air Force Base for advanced training, and then went to Turkey, was in Adana, Turkey for a year and a half. Came back during that time to the States and got married, and took my bride with me 10,000 miles away from home to Turkey to live in downtown Adana, a city of about 1 million people, and we traveled back and forth to base, and I served for my year after I was married in Turkey. Then we came back to the States and was stationed in Nebraska at a radar bomb site. The task of that place was to train the bombers that would come up out of Barksdale, Louisiana.
It was when I was younger, and it was when my dad was serving in Iraq, and I always remember being really, really ornery and like troublesome as a child. And my dad, when he left and stuff, I would always cry to my mom and tell her, I'll be good and I'll behave, and then I always thought like he would come back home.
I did baby lift. Baby lift is where that we went into Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia and brought out small babies that was fathered by American GIs, and we also brought out adults. And at the end of the whole thing, we'd brought out several million people.
The next person that has been in my life is my husband, Mike Wallen, and he served in the Army during the Vietnam era. He was stationed in Germany.
He didn't really like to talk about the actual battles. I think they only saw action a couple times, but I think that did affect him. But he was so proud of his service. It meant a lot to him, the people that he met, the friendships that he made. He kept in touch with those buddies year after year, would go to all the reunions. So it really affected his lifetime. It was very, probably one of the most extraordinary experiences of his life. I think it really affected who he was, his discipline, his character, hardworking, very driven. I think he really learned that being in the Navy.
He is in Iwakuni, Japan, and he is a military policeman. It's interesting because he like pulls people over and like who are higher ranks than him, so that's kind of different for him because he's like giving tickets to people who are higher ranks than him.
I have actually been to the Far East twice. Being in the Marine Corps, I was attached to an infantry company, 1st Battalion, 1st Marines out of Camp Pendleton, California. Graduated boot camp in early December and got to stay home right shortly after Christmas, and then I had to report back to Camp Pendleton. So from that point on, after school, I ended up found myself in Japan, Okinawa, Japan, at 18-year-old, freshly out of high school, freshly out of boot camp and school. So it was kind of hard to believe at first. It just seemed like surreal that I was there at that young of an age, and would have never imagined myself ever being in a foreign land that far overseas. So from there we traveled to Korea, the Philippines, and various other islands around that area for doing different operations.
He was like boots on the ground. He was in the thick of it. He was in a highly contaminated area with Agent Orange, and so to this day he is 100% service-connected disabled because he has lymphoma, which is connected to his exposure to Agent Orange, or presumptive to be. When he left Vietnam and came back, he had to spend another 6 months in the service, which he calls playing army games. And that was a very rough, hard time for him because he had been in Vietnam, he had been in war, and to play war games to him was just not something he wanted to do. And I think he did have a higher rank, but I think he was busted down to an E4 when he left because of just not being able to handle that. He came back at a time when servicemen were not looked on favorably by a majority of the country. He came back to California, and he says he was spat at. He was one of those Vietnam veterans that was spat at, called a baby killer, called names. So it was not a good time. So he spent many, many years not discussing the fact that he was a Vietnam veteran. And that is sad. And that will bring me to an emotional state because I am very proud of him serving his country. And our children are very proud of him, as is his family. And it's probably only been in the last 10 years, in our experience, that it's been okay to say you're a Vietnam veteran.
You know, I think that a lot of people forget one thing, though, is that the hardest job in the military is whenever that you walk away from your wife and you have to leave her home, and she sits there and she wonders whether or not that you're going to come back. For the military individual, you have a job, you go do it, you know what that you're doing, you have people that's going to help you do it. But sitting at home a lot of times, they're just sitting there, and you know, whenever that you hug your wife and kiss your baby goodbye, maybe the last time that you hug your wife and kiss your baby goodbye.
The second time I went overseas was on ship, and that was fun. It was kind of like the Love Boat, but military style. So it was a good experience. Got to go to Iwo Jima. That operation got cut short, unfortunately, due to we had to go and provide protection for the military bases at the Philippines because they were having a government overthrow. So we got to go provide security for the bases. And from that point on, we went and did operations in Thailand, to Hong Kong, to mainland Japan, Korea again, the Philippines, and got all the way down to Bali and Singapore. Unfortunately, we missed our opportunity to go to Australia due to President Reagan at that time, that we needed to go provide security for him at a Far East conference that he was having.
He went to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, where he was getting ready to be trained so that way he could go off to Iraq, which he did the following year. And he was there for a total of 13 months, and he served in Baghdad, I think. And currently he's home. I'm not sure if he's going to go back or not. I think he wants to because he likes serving the country, but for our sake, we like him home, so he's safe.
I entered the Air Force in May of 1970, and following basic training at Lackland Air Force Base, I was assigned to Vance Air Force Base in Oklahoma on a pilot training base. Having a college degree and experience in athletics at the high school and collegiate level, I was selected as a physical training specialist on the pilot training base.
I want to say thank you to all of the men in my life that have been involved in the military. I thank you for your leadership. I thank you for your teamwork in our family. And most of all, I love you, and I want to take this time set aside and thank you for your sacrifice to our country and to our families as well.
Due to the fact that I was drafted in the Army, it wasn't my choice to join the military. My experience in the military was I was glad to get out. I was glad to leave and get on with my life, because I did see it as a time when I was serving my country, but also saw it somewhat as an obligation because I was drafted, and that draft is no longer around. So I'm really proud of the young people and older people, but people today that join the military, because they're doing that out of a definite service to their country. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the service that all of the men and women that are currently fighting and for our way of life and to keep us free. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Dad, I'm just so proud of everything that you've done for me, for America, for everything that you love. And I'm so grateful that I get to know you and be someone who can relate to the military in a way. You serving has given me such great appreciation for all the sacrifice that so many great men have made for us to live so happily and freely.
Dad, thank you so much for all you've done, all the sacrifices that you've made for our country and for our family. I love you, and just thank you so much for being in the Army and keeping us all safe.
It makes me proud to be able to call myself the daughter of a veteran. It really does.
It's made me who I am today, discipline-wise, integrity, being a proud, very proud veteran of all the branches that serve, for our country. And at the same time, I think that it's makes me appreciate those that came before me and that will come after me, when they serve and wear the uniform. So it's very humbling a lot of times when you go to ceremonies, the annual Marine Corps Ball or other events that go and do honor those veterans that have served.
Because of my dad, I've been thinking about going into the military, maybe the Marines.
Grandpa, I speak for both myself and the whole family when we say thank you so much for your service to our country in World War II. And we are so thankful that you and other people that you knew sacrificed to help us live free in this country. We love you. Thank you.
Because my brothers had such a big influence on me, I plan on joining the service myself. Thank you for everything you do, RJ. I'm really proud of you.
Dad, I'm really proud of you. And I know it's hard that you serve, and I know that you're out there to save other people other than ourselves. And I really miss you, and I love you a lot, and I just really wish that you could be home, because I really miss you. It's really hard with you being gone, and Mom having to work, and Samantha having to work, and Zeb and stuff, my brother, and I really wish you could be home. Sometimes I wish you had a normal job so I could be like, yeah, my dad's, gonna be home for dinner tonight, but I know that you're out there serving so people can have dinner and not be attacked by other people. But I miss you and I really wish you could be home and stuff and see Zeb growing up and see Samantha getting married and everything, which I know you'll be home for that, but I don't like how dangerous your job is, but I wish that you could just be home, even though I know you're doing what you, like, it's good that you're doing this. It really is.
What I say to my husband Rex is that you are a good man. You served your country well, you served proudly, and you have lived your life very well. And I thank you for your service. I don't think enough people have said that to you. But we move on, and we're trying to say thank you to everyone else, and I love you with all my heart.
We have many veterans in our community, and we would be surprised with the number of veterans that are employed by the Warsaw Community Schools. And I would just like to say to all of our veterans, thank you. You matter.